It's not harmful. So you go in and you think.
So this is about cults today, right? And he's a deprogrammer, right? Who, again, knows how people manipulate each other. One of the things the cult will do, like with Davis's cult, is he's the apostle. He's like the Pope to the church, right? What he says goes. He even decides who marries or not, and things of that nature. To even date, I had to go to Pastor Thomas, right? And try to find an available girl, right? Even, right?
How did that come in?
And that's why it didn't work out, because again, right?
Single people out who he considers
he has too much power, right? And other people would leave the church and they would demonize them, right? Too, right? And try to start their own church, right? Well, they would demonize anyone who would do that, right?
And
see, God doesn't put you under one pastor, right? Who's a dictator, like Satan, right? And that's what they wouldn't see Davis as he really was, a Jim Jones, right? A wolf in sheep's clothing.
Don't empathize with me or I'll drag you down.
The wolf wants to devour the flock and lead them astray, right? The whole flock, right? Not just the little lamb who went astray, right? Now the thing is, I was taught differently, right, than the people in the church too, so I knew Davis was up to no good, right? But I still had to deal with what he was teaching me was from the Bible, right? That's where some of the confusion comes in, right? They are biblical in what they're saying, but they're not listening to the heart of Jesus' message, which is love and forgive and help each other.
Sticks or whatever, and told to beat other children.
Yes, and I heard about it directly from two of the children who were victims in that. And then since going public, I've heard from at least 15 other kids who were part of it saying thank you for finally saying something.
But see, nobody knows what you're going through unless you tell somebody.
You all to hear that there are 10,000.
That's the whole problem too, right?
In the country right now. That's surprising to you when you heard it.
Now that's what Jesus meant with the scribes and Pharisees, right? Now the problem is when he talks about marriage or divorce, right, and committing adultery, right? Is it adultery, right? Or did you just marry the wrong person, right? See. It depends. Even the woman at the well had 5 husbands and was living with the dude, so that's really the reality of Israel, not that they were married or not married, right? Another thing is the women didn't have the choice, the father did in who they married, right? And that's why Paul talks of keeping your virgin or not, right? And the father was responsible for marrying his daughter and his son, right? Depending on which was the firstborn as well, right? Now, there was a case with Noah and her sisters where if she married into a different tribe, right, they could lose their inheritance at the Jubilee, right? So they were allowed to back then to even marry first cousins, right? Just not brother and sister anymore, right? So that was a rule, right, that you could marry your first cousin. But now doctors come along and say that's wrong too, right? But there again, it's still judging something, right, under condemnation, and not forgiving, having to deal with a close relative, right, who you might spend the night with or not, right, but not really think nothing will happen either fully, and are willing to stop too, but trying to show an interest but not go too far, right? Both, any cousin situation where it's a female to a male, you can deal with that, right? Or a male to a male cousin too, right? Now, the thing is, like I said, that Uncle Russell's or right, someone else's house, right? When you're spending the night because someone wasn't there, right? It only would get confusing if that person came in later on and you didn't expect them to, or you're already asleep and then the other person, you're waking up with him calling you gay, right? Well, that could mean I had a wet dream, sir, but not wanted sex with you, right? Those are two different things, and one is conscious and one is unconscious, right? See, that's what you don't understand either. That don't make someone gay because they're humping something in their sleep, right? We do that, silly. Even if you don't remember it. That's the real problem too, right? The other problem is people pick and choose what they show you from the Bible too. Unless you're reading the whole thing more than once, they stop teaching where it gets too weird for them, right? Well, that's called sealing what it's saying. If, like in Isaiah, it talks about sucking the breast of kings. Now, royals and kings are two different words, but they're the same word there, right? It also differentiates princesses, right, from prince, right, and princess, right, in the Torah and the law and the prophets as well, right? And the writings of David or the singing psalms, right? And the Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and Song of Solomon of King David. I mean, Solomon his son, right? Now, David wrote most of the Psalms except for a few attributed to Moses or someone else. Mostly. And they're songs of praise, some of them, right? And again, dealing with his time dealing with Saul and the things he did, right, throughout his life, right. Now, David wasn't what you would call today a good man even, right. He was diabolical. If he saw something, he went and got it and sent for it, even if it was someone else's, right. And he wasn't supposed to either, I know. But that's how some people think they're supposed to be with God, which makes you a tyrannical king and not a good king, right? Even if you're seeking after God's own heart, that don't make you a good person in your own heart if you're doing that to your fellow countrymen, right? Uriah's wife was Uriah's wife. He should have trusted that the king would not make a play on his wife, right? While he was fighting for him, right? In battle. But some people held David as the king of kings and all this, right? Someone to model after, but no, not really. Not really. And when he was about to die anyway, you know how they warned him? A virgin. And you say, I'm sick for being around a 4-year-old, but I can't do nothing with the 4-year-old without her waking me up, right? I'm not trying to either, right? That's not my fault, right? Okay, if she wakes me up or not, right? That's not how that happens. I keep telling you that, right? And whoever thinks it is messed up and they're thinking about pedophilia too. They think they can say that it's normal for the child to wake up the sleeping parent, right? And not the one she's with, right? Which is the mom, right? Well, why would she wake up the mom first to go and pee, right? That's what I mean too, right? Instead, you're insinuating, since I'm on the couch, right? She came into the living room with me when she was sleeping with her mom. Do you hear what you're accusing her and the mom of, right? It's not me you're accusing of this, it's the mom. Which I can't prove nothing. The mom can't prove nothing. And both me and her wouldn't say she did or didn't for different reasons. One, I don't even know. I don't even fully remember. Two, someone else brought this up 11 years later. Right. And three, right, we all moved on, even my ex-wife. And yeah, she got child support till I got out the Navy, and then again until I could work it out what I needed to do, right? Whether work or go on disability, and I had to go on disability, right? Within 2 years of being discharged too, right? This has nothing to do though with reading the Bible, understanding God or Jesus or not, right? Exactly. Those are different points as well, right? And the other problem is, how do you know that charisma, right? See, Davis was a charismatic person, though he was kind of a bully too. Pastor Thomas told me one time that he was sitting down eating, and Pastor Davis just sat down across from him and started eating from his plate. And what kind of bully is that, right? But instead he saw it as an enduring quality of the man, right? Well, that man's kind of the, what's the word for that? Glutton? If he'll eat the food from your own plate. Most people have enough sense to at least ask for a few fries. And not just take it from your plate as if he's, doing something right. That's just in the red flags that the man has no manners and don't know how to interact with people normally, right? And what you're really finding interesting ain't that he's a good person, but he's a bad, right? And knows how to get away with it. Right? Yeah, that's what his real draw was, right? If you're eating from another person's plate boldly, right, you don't know social norms, right? In the first place, right? People don't do that, right? Normally, right? They'll ask, well, hey, buddy, how you doing? Can I have a few fries there? Right. But they won't just take the fries, start eating the fries in front of you like they're their fries and they bought them, right? Like Davis did with Pastor Thomas, right? What the hell is wrong with that man? I don't know, but that mean on that register where there's a thin line, right, between acceptable behavior and unacceptable behavior. That's unacceptable to take food from another person's plate who bought the stuff they're eating, right, without asking permission, right? That makes him a bully, which with a charisma to make Pastor Thomas think, well, that was okay for him to do that. He's a pastor, right? No, it's not, right? Okay. For a pastor to take someone else's fries, usually either. That's not normal without asking. First. Whole point. You gotta ask to receive. You don't just grab someone's fries from their plate and start eating them. First time you meet them, right? And for some reason, Thomas's red flags didn't go off, right? When he started doing that, right? That's the man who don't know social norms, right? And it's okay to do something like that, which he's acting like a glutton then, right? So your glutton won't ask you for the food. They'll take your food from your own plate and eat it right in front of you. Won't they? Won't they? But at the same time, he knows what he's doing is wrong. That's the other thing, right? That's the other side of the point, right? Of the man, right? If he takes stuff from your plate and you just bought it and you're sitting down to eat it and he comes over and sits down and starts eating your own food, right? That's beyond gluttony. That means he don't know he has to even ask you for some food, right? which is all you gotta do normally with other people. They'll say, well, are you hungry? Do you want to buy something to eat or something? Right. Now, that's different, right, than someone grabbing your fries and start eating them from your plate that you just bought your food from. The place you bought it from, right? This is one of the things I've heard about the man, right? As well as he's kind of dominant, right? He controls every aspect of his churches and congregations' life, right? Including who they marry or don't marry, things like that, right? Or who even marries, right? Right. Now, a lot of it was asked about their unitship program, right? Once they started filling in some of the details, I didn't, want to do that anymore. And they started talking about jerking off with each other, excuse the French there, but, touching the other man's junk to be a unit didn't sound like a unitship program I would want to be a part of. I thought that means you keep it to yourself. You handle your business and I handle mine, right? In the privacy of our home, right? And you stay a unit and I stay a unit for the Lord, not for Pastor Davis, right? And we serve God and not a man. Not a man. Right. Any cult, though, that's about your money and not treating you right or loving you, right? Be it Latter-day Saints, be it, right? Well, what I'm talking about is, can you, if the women choose you, be with more than one woman, right? That's, again, the point, right? I'm not saying you trick the women, right? And try to have sex with them and then break up with them and then have sex with them and then break up with them, right? I'm saying I would not do that normally, right? Most of my relationships, though, one night stands, the woman chose me, right? And we went somewhere, had sex, and then we kind of got lost again, right? And that's what happened, basically, with most of them, right? Some lasted a month, 3 months, 6 months, 18 months. Teresa lived with me for 2 years, right? Then Nina come along, and I'm around her for a little bit, about a year or so, till she moved back home or something, right? And then that's dealing with her boyfriend issues, right? And he's in jail, right? Now, like I said, though, the only one who was jealous of Nina was Teresa, I know. And calling her a whore, right? Okay, well, I'm just helping her out, and she's paying me, so she's not a whore. I know. And I didn't like Teresa calling her a whore, but she stuck up my butt after I met her first, and then I meet Nina, and then, right, and she has a son, right? And then the son's getting a little touchy-feely for some reason, but that's because he don't have a dad in his life, probably, right? But then I'm trying to be a friend and not go too far, but he could have misconstrued something, right? Again. And then you got to deal with all the crap on YouTube at the same time, right? I'm not trying to get you to follow me. Follow Jesus instead, right? Read the Bible on your own. That's the big problem, right? People aren't. And unreasonable demands of you, I think that is a red flag, right? It is. It's the whole point to everything that Davis was doing, right? He was telling his units they could jerk off with each other. Who heard of that? Nobody, right? But were they doing it? I heard they were. They tried to involve me, maybe, I don't know, a couple times, right? And I politely declined. And even Davis tried to put a move on me, we'll call it that, right? When we were kind of isolated near his office, right? And I had no witnesses to verify it, right? But I also knew not to hit him, which could be what he was after, right? being that I took real martial arts and no self-defense. See, I can't prove it if you're grabbing my butt while hugging me, right? At all. There wouldn't even be a handprint there. But I can walk away, not respond, which is what he wants us here to hit him, was me to hit him. Right. The reason he wants me to hit him is he's going to try and threaten me with taking me to court, right? And put me in jail for assault, right? See, I knew all that, right? I could tell the man's demeanor had changed, right? And he was no longer friendly Pastor Davis. He was his stalker self, right? I mean, his molester self, right? That's a real molestation, but it's also something you can't prove, right? That he did, right? But if you hit him for it and he's got a bruise and you're fine, right? He can say, well, why'd you hit the pastor? Right? That's a power play, right? Do you understand? You don't hit the pastor if you have no witnesses. You walk away. You walk away. You let him get his little jolly, right? You just don't respond to him and you walk away. And you walk away. See, I've also learned that through self-defense. You can't just hit somebody without proof they touched you, right? There's no proof if he put his hand on my butt. At all, while hugging me, right? Because he too is uncomfortable with his sexuality. When he says that to you, he's also confessing his own sexual problems, right? Mm-hmm. But he's making you part of the problem. He's doing something with you, right? He knows he's not supposed to do either. Mm-hmm. 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 All right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's some real boundary crossing.
Boundary crossing, right?
Dr. Natalia Petrozella is a fitness instructor and self-proclaimed gym rat. Says she noticed many cult vibes in the fitness world. Now, she also wrote a book on this exact topic called Fit Nation: The Gains and Pains of America's Exercise
Obsession, right?
You talk about the guru, and you talk about the charismatic person that gives you the bait and switch pitch.
Right.
There's the same hierarchy in these fitness organizations where there's a charismatic leader.
Mm-hmm.
And these things can get really expensive, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the story of the fitness industry in the last 10 to 15 years is an industry that was already kind of for the leisured class, but the price points just skyrocketed and people were willing to pay.
And these are classes. There's even a hierarchy in the room, just like there was a hierarchy with you, who was in the front, who was in the inner circle.
Right.
Work the same way.
Oh, absolutely. And
that's called a pyramid,
yes,
too, right?
Is central to it because it's this enclosed space where special people come together, led by a charismatic instructor. And then, just like you say, like in this one particular fitness indoor cycling program, the front row is for the super elite, and you kind of only know once you're sort of in. So somebody who doesn't know might come in and, I'm just gonna sit in this front row, and it's and they're often moved actually somewhere else until they're ready.
But that's like Jesus said about sitting up close when you're just new to the show, right? Take the back seat if it's a hierarchy, right?
You get caught.
Don't sit in the front row, right?
It's almost somewhere between
someone might move you.
incredible music.
Sound familiar, right? That's what he's warning you about too, right? Don't come in somewhere where they don't know you and think you're gonna get the front row seat, right? If you're bid to a wedding or something's going on, right? even an exercise class, right, where it's the same, it seems, right?
Yeah, something that I always say is that one of the reasons that the lines can be so blurred in the fitness industry is because the whole thing is embodied. Like if I went to church or a synagogue and like people started touching me and telling me, oh, your butt looks good, like that would clearly be inappropriate. And
But
go to the gym because they want their butt to look good. So, I think that kind
cause and effect, right?
I mean, there's, some really powerful stories that have been told about people in yoga communities who are, they go to these huge trainings or classes, they're taught by this guru, they're getting physical adjustments and attention from the person who's so celebrated, and they feel like something's wrong. Why is this teacher like pressing his crotch into me? Why is he touching me like that? But they're both often sort of dissuaded from saying something because they feel like, well, I'm getting this special instruction and this is very important, all these other people in the room are watching. I must be the one who's not sufficiently on board. I have to get over my hang-ups to be okay with that.
But that could be true to a point, too, unless the guru's trying to have sex with all the women. See, that's what I mean, too, right? See, I'm not really trying to be with 5 women, even though I talk about 5 wives, right? Gee, right.
Whether or not
that sarcasm,
manipulation and coercion, either subtly or otherwise, emotionally. But it begins with transparency.
Right.
If things are being hidden from the person, if they're being manipulated in ways that this person knows and that person doesn't, that's a bad sign.
Right.
Another thing
well, see, that's another thing. You don't quite know who's part of his unitship program or who ain't, like with Davis, right? And most of them, even married, right, are, again, could still be part of Davis's masturbation scheme, right?
And let me say, victims don't need to be weak, broken, lost, or poor in order to fall into a questionable situation.
Right.
People that oftentimes get involved in cults are highly intelligent and they're wealthy. Oftentimes,
right. And you get a check every month in the Navy, and Pastor Davis wants his share. Well, he'll, again, bait and switch you. He'll go to hug you, then put his arms between your butt. Right. But you won't expect it when he finally does, right? Either, right? And it's to get you to hit him, right? Then he can get you through blackmail. Hypothetically. See, once you hit him, he can threaten to sue you for assault, right? And take you to court, right? Once he's done that, he's done made you part of his cult, right? Another problem is cancer culture, right? Just because I have a stepdaughter, right, and I'm sleeping on the couch don't mean I can molest her, right? Or would even think to, but, right, the people who are acting like they know are speaking in a plural sense, right? For someone else. We, they keep saying, right? Well, we ain't you. You're speaking for someone else, and you know it. You just agree with the cult for now. And are caught up in it, right? But the problem is the cult is trying to keep you in it, right? At the same time, right? They forbid you to talk to your parents. Or when you do, they want you religious and to isolate yourself from them, right? Or friends, you used to know, right? That's the whole point again, right? I don't trust my old friends anymore. They don't trust me, really. But there's a reason for that, too. Even they're being sexual in the church, right? So I'm also modeling my behavior off of their behavior, right? That's why me and Sheena slept together, too. I mean, I didn't know. She didn't want to go all the way, but she didn't say to only do oral sex either, right? The day of the second date, right? And see, a quickie under the tree is different than me totally making love to her, say in a hotel room or apartment, or if we were to get married, our own home or something, right? Dude, that's what I was trying to tell her, right? Dude, maybe it came out wrong, or maybe I got a little sarcastic at times, right? But it don't mean I meant what I was saying. I was being the complete opposite of what I was, right? But then I was also asking her to marry me in Jerusalem and things like that, right? And that's a little bipolar maybe, but not schizophrenic necessarily. It's again the problem of you have a new girlfriend and what's going on with her. She's on another ship, right? And you can't see each other face to face, right? You can only write letters, right? I know. And it's not the same as work harassment of the same people like I was going through on the ship, right? See, I'm working with the guys harassing me and not training me, right, the whole time, right? And Sheena wouldn't know this, right? And I can't just tell her in the letters either, but they're worried about it, that I might bring it up in the letters. So, see. But that's why they're sabotaging it, right? With letters you can't prove I wrote, right? Whereas I'm writing her only handwritten letters, right? I don't know. But my handwriting ain't the best. I know. Either, but still. That's all I could really do differently than the shipmates, right? And again, send her the Bible studies and things like that, right? But again, if I'm treating you right, and then you're suddenly not writing me anymore, I'm going to first try to send you Bible studies, but if you keep not writing me, I might get a little negative, right? But not right away necessarily if I think things are going good, right? Yet my shipmates give me my letters, right? Even if they say contrary to, right? Because they got a lie. They got a lie. Once I start figuring out the truth through amnesia, right? And not sure what the hell's going on, and they're not waking me up for watch, or they are for watch but not for muster, right? Something's going on, right? I just can't prove it, what's going on, right? And they really started having it out for me after I met Sheena probably as well. And wanting to get me off the ship, and Sheena became my way off the ship too, right? With whatever they were telling her in addition to what I was telling her made me seem either schizophrenic or bipolar to the Navy. And I'm not saying I wasn't acting out, right? I was. But the reason was I was confused, not myself anymore, right? After all Davis had showed me, right? And I'm still trying to get back to being Shane too, right? Who I was before I met this crazy church, right? That's why you are confused by me differently than, say, your normal schizophrenic who has always been schizophrenic, or your normal schizophrenic who, right? I seem a little more intelligent than your average schizophrenic, don't I? Right? I know. Right. Like I think about things before I do them, actually. Right.
Ring true, and that old saying that if something's too good to be true,
it is.
It's probably because it's just not true. And
right.
If there were these get-rich-quick schemes, everybody would be doing it. We really have to ask questions, and I worry about it in this divisive political environment we're in today with identity politics, where people are afraid to even ask questions for fear that they'll be shunned.
Right.
By friends and neighbors. If it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, if you ask questions that
makes you unpopular,
that's a problem.
I'm really troubled as a person who's watched destructive cults for many years, seeing that the word is becoming somewhat politicized. That one political party calls another party a cult, and this is becoming, a way of denigrating and putting people down. And I think what we should recognize is that cults are not democratic.
Well, like I said, Warnock might be getting $7,000 a month from his church, right? But that's not just for housing. That's the salary, right? By the way. But at the same time, right, he's got people in apartments who aren't necessarily, being taken care of either. So you could use that politically, right? Since he's getting his money from the church, right? But at the same time, right, it's not his doing, right, either. But there again, you got Walker talking about vampires, but that's pop culture today, right? That's what Warnock don't get, right? So he's just talking about pop culture to the people around him, right? Well, there's a reason for that too, right? Werewolves and vampires, right? A werewolf could kill a vampire. I want to be a werewolf. What do you think he's saying there, Mr. Warnock? Or Pastor Warnock, right? Or Senator Warnock, right? He's trying to identify with them through their culture, through their pop culture. Right? It won't ring a bell with you. I know. But that don't mean it's not with other voters. That's the problem too, right? You got to know both sides of the coin. And talking about 3 bulls and a bull in the field with 6 cows and getting 3 pregnant, right? That's what the bull does. And he impregnates all the bulls once. The cows, I'm sorry, right? And there's a reason he does that with the heifers. A bull will not sleep or have sex with a heifer unless it's never had sex, right? Or it's another male competing for top bull, right? Then the bull will have sex with a cow that hasn't had sex yet, right? If he's competing with another male, usually. But if he's the only bull in the field, 3 are already pregnant. He means something you don't understand about how a bull acts in a china shop, too. And Ferdinand comes to mind, Mr. Warnock, right? Think about it. Pop culture. Then you got Mr. Cena as Ferdinand, the bull in the china shop. Think about it. And that's also from a movie with Ashley Judd and one of the popular stars at the time, where she was dating, and again, right, she felt like she was the cow put out to pasture or something, right? Another pop culture reference you don't get, do you? Right. I know. I get it. I know you get it. I get both sides of the coin, right? I listen to everything somebody says. But sometimes it's not what you think matters, right? It's what the people think matters, right?
Cultivating lifelong friendships is so incredibly important. Having people who are there for you through thick and thin.
Right.
And these friendships can come about when you least expect it, and sometimes in the most unexpected ways, like my next guest, Bridget and Wenda. So welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
So, Bridget, how did you and Wenda meet?
Well, I used to live up in Connecticut, and I would play bingo with my friends. And after a while, I moved to Alabama, and I